Hey everybody, welcome in the RedZone. Sean Brown, Michael Johnston here, and it is conference championship week, and that's what we're here to pick. Some great games coming up. It should be a very exciting week. Playoff spots on the line, but before we start talking about what's going to happen with conference championships, let's talk just briefly about what happened during rivalry weeks. Sean, what stood out to you? What was you most impressed with rivalry week?
I think Auburn's got a quarterback who is going to look really, really good, and may, if they continue to have a defense like that, they're going to contend here in the next couple of years, I think. I mean, Bo Nix was crazy good. Alabama was good as well. They just, it stinks to lose your starting quarterback, and then their secondary is just kind of awful this year.
Yeah.
I mean, that number 15, the safety for Alabama on the last touchdown run by Auburn. I mean, that's a dude that's like, and I know he's a running back, wide receiver. I really don't know. We're really busy this week, but anyway, you guys know the play if you saw the game. Dude just lowers his head and gets around the corner on a jet sweep or fly sweep and just, runs into him. I mean, and that guy is got at least 50 pounds on the ball carrier. It blew my mind that he just put so little. I watched that play maybe 15 times in a row, and the lack of effort that went into that guy trying to stop the guy carrying the ball. And it's just like, that's not Alabama.
No, there was a lack of discipline by Alabama. And I just think a lack of will. They just didn't want it. They didn't want it. And I don't know if it's just they're so used to winning all the time. And it's like, it feels like even in kind of years past, they lose that one game and they just feel like the season's over. Yeah. And they don't play for anything else. And, they made that excuse a few years back when Oklahoma beat them in the Sugar Bowl. And they're like, oh, what are we playing for? I mean, that's a lame excuse. I mean, you need to come ready to play every week, and if you lose, you got to fight to get back in. And Alabama was not out of it. Maybe they started listening to all of the people saying Alabama's out, they're not going to be in the playoff, and I don't know. I think it's pretty pathetic the way they played.
Well, and then Nick Saban throws an absolute temper tantrum on the sideline. And granted, that's a weird situation to have 1 second and then go to review, and then obviously, which I counted 2 seconds. I mean, they really gave him 2 seconds. Yeah. Because by the time the guy wound his arm and blew the whistle, there was 1 second before that ball was snapped. Yeah. I mean, I watched that over and over again to try to see.
Because there's absolutely no way that ball, a referee can signal, roll the clock, and they can get that
off.
I
mean, they say that there in the what's it called? Just the overall gameplay, you have to have 3 seconds to be able to go snap the ball and either kick a field goal, do what you're going to do if you don't have a timeout. But the difference was they went to replay. Yeah.
Gave him a chance to set up.
And the ball, after replay, the clock starts when the ref says it starts. Yeah. So literally, you hear that whistle, you snap the football, you've got a second, so you can do it. Yeah. That's just one of those circumstances that is out of the norm, and I mean, you can't really say that it was against the rules because it worked. I mean, physically it worked. So just unfortunate for Alabama.
I mean, it's the end of the first half. You had a whole second half to play, so you can't blame the loss just on that. I mean,
and another thing that bothered me was Nick Saban saying that the play was unfair. That they put their punter in and then moved him out to wide receiver.
That's Alabama
genius.
Not being prepared.
That's genius.
Yeah, that's
and then
that's
Alabama
Malzahn
tries to substitute, and they can't substitute because Auburn didn't substitute.
Yep. And they pulled that exactly for the reason, and it worked. They tried to get Alabama to either jump or to make a substitute infraction, and it worked. And that was the whole purpose of putting the punter out there like that.
Because you saw Bo Nix look over to the sideline and basically say, "We got him. We got him." That thing worked like a charm, man. Yeah, I gotta give it to Gus Malzahn because I mean, every once in a while he'll pull something out that you're just like, wow. I mean, they don't have a very eclectic offense, but the stuff that they run sometimes is just flat out.
I will say that Alabama's backup quarterback, despite throwing the 2 pick sixes, think he played a heck of a game.
Yeah.
I mean, for that situation,
it was one of the highest scoring Iron Bowls ever.
Yeah, he was, and he played really well despite the 2 pick sixes. So last thing I'll say with this game, then we'll move on to talk about another one. SEC Shorts, if you haven't seen it, you gotta watch this week's video. It is so funny. Good. And that guy, the main guy in that video, he's a huge Alabama fan. So for him to pick on his own team, you know, it's classic. You got to see it. Okay, so another one, Ohio State just absolutely rolls over Michigan. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, not really surprised, I guess. I know that Ohio State's just rolling right now, and Michigan is they're apt to be subject to a beatdown from their rival like that. So,
I mean, Jim Harbaugh was asked, what's the gap? What's the difference between Ohio State and Michigan? Why is it always like this? And of course, I'm sure you've seen it. If you're a football fan, you've seen his response. Everybody's played it on the radio, all over TV. You know, kind of classless on his. Although I will say, he can't just come out and say the truth.
Right.
And the truth is there's a huge talent gap. But he can't come out and say our guys aren't as good as their guys. He can't say that. But there is. I mean, there's a speed difference. There's a power, the size difference on the offensive defensive line. I mean, there is a difference, and Michigan has got to do a better job of recruiting.
Just go look at the national recruiting pages every year, and Ohio State's one of the ones that is constantly getting top 5. Top 5 classes. So there's a reason why these teams are good. And
the one thing, the only other thing I'll say about this game is the other thing too I noticed with Michigan is it's a huge confidence gap. And when I mean that is that the Ohio State players walk on that field and they're like, nobody's beating us. Nobody's beating us. And even if they, like the Penn State situation where you have 3 straight fumbles and Penn State gets back in, it's like, come on. No, this ain't happening. Let's go. With Michigan, it's a little bit different. I mean, they come into the rivalry game and you can kind of, they make a few plays. They're hanging in there. It's a score for score, and they're okay. But it's like one thing bad happens. It's like, oh, here we go. And it's like they just don't believe in themselves. I mean, and it's so obvious. There's a huge confidence gap between the two teams.
It's crazy because I think about the Bedlam game because Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, it's just a talent gap there. Because Oklahoma State has the confidence. They really think they're going to go in and win that game. I mean, they played their hearts out. I saw a team that really didn't quit till really, late into the second half. I mean, Mike Gundy looked like he kind of quit after halftime, but some things didn't bounce their way. That was a tough game for them.
I mean, they lost their best wide receiver for the year. They lost their quarterback, and Drew Brown's coming in, and you have Chuba Hubbard, but when you're one-dimensional and all you're going to do is run the ball, that makes it easier for OU to defend you. And it's just, OU's got such a high-scoring offense. It's like
one thing I saw today, I think it kind of blew my mind is over the last 4 years. So as a defense, this is one of those advanced statistics. So pardon me if you kind of conk out for this one, but Oklahoma, in the last 3 years before this year, was like number 124, 126, and 127 in giving up big yardage plays. This year, they're like number 4 in the country. And if you don't believe in what Alex Grinch is doing with that defense, you're not looking at they've been and what they are now.
The last 3 games, they've started to get turnovers, and they've really turned it around.
And remember, most of those defensive players are still Mike Stoops guys. So, and I love a lot of them. I love Ronnie Perkins, Buki still, Parnell
Motley had a great game.
They're still really good players, but they needed that mentality change on that side of the football. And Alabama fans, man, we're really glad we didn't get Pete Goulding because we wanted him, and they don't want him at this point. So looks like we kind of got the better end of that.
2 other games we'll quickly mention. LSU throttled Texas A&M. I mean, I knew they would. I expected LSU to win pretty easily. I didn't expect that. I mean, and LSU put it all together. I mean, every single element, special teams, offense, defense, it was just a perfect game for LSU. I mean, it was a beatdown. So
it's weird that they're playing rivalry week. I know they're big rivals, Alabama, but you kind of wish they had a secondary rival that kind of would play that weekend.
Well, I mean, it was a little bit of a rivalry because of last year's 7 overtime. So that played into account.
There's not a lot of
I don't know how Joe Burrow doesn't get the Heisman after last week. I mean, Chase Young didn't have a tackle against Michigan, so I think that kind of
they doubled up on him quite a bit.
And what they did was Michigan did to Chase Young what Ohio State did to Chase Winovich the year before, and just took him completely out of the game. And so
I will say I thought Jalen Hurts would get to 4,000 passing yards this year, but he's gonna have to average 350 or 335 the next 2 games to get it.
Yeah.
To get 4,000 and to become only the 3rd player to ever do it. It wasn't Cam Newton. I think I may have said this, but it was Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray.
Last game that had playoff implications, Utah pretty much took care of Colorado.
Yeah.
I was looking back, and Utah all year long, they gave up, I think they gave up 28. They've given up like 28 and 23. That was the most they've given up in points. The 3rd most was 15 to Colorado all year long. And of course, the one thing I didn't even think about it until recently, but Utah's only loss this year to USC. They didn't have Moss, their running back. He was injured at the time. So I think that plays a part. But Utah took care of business, so they're clearing the running.
The only thing that could have helped Colorado was maybe playing at home.
Yeah.
Because they played better at home. Other teams with the altitude adjustment.
Utah's defense, man, they are good.
Yeah.
They are good. Okay, let's get into the picks, unless you have anything else you want to add about rivalry week.
I don't know. I'm kind of on the spot.
Okay. There was a lot of great games. I mean, there was a lot of great games during rivalry week. Okay, let's get into conference championships, and we're going.
Okay, yeah, there was one thing. The Mississippi player, the Ole Miss player, that went to do the urinating dog.
I'll tell you right now, his ass would be off the team if I was a coach. I mean, he would be gone.
See, and I told you I wouldn't give him the benefit of going and transferring to another team and basically not getting a punishment, having to switch schools, but then he goes to another team, doesn't really have to sit out a game. I mean, this way control his punishment.
If he goes somewhere else, he still has to sit out because he didn't redshirt. So even if you kick him off the team, he's got to sit out if he goes somewhere.
Unless he graduates. I don't know what year the kid is, but
applies for a hardship waiver or something. But I mean, I'm sorry, but he'd be gone.
Apparently, DK Metcalf did that same thing.
Yeah.
And he was copying after him, and it's just funny when these players do these things and then come out and say, "That's not me. This is not who I am." That is exactly who you are because you did that.
He's not even the one saying that because these universities have PR staffs who write the apology. It's not even genuine.
Yeah.
And if you want to if you want to argue that, just look at Baker Mayfield's apology after the flag planting, and then he comes out later and says that was total crap. I wasn't sorry for it.
Yeah.
He's not sorry for doing what he did.
Yeah.
And he didn't write that apology.
Yeah.
Total crap. Because if it were coming from him, he would have came out in front of the cameras, in front of the microphone, and gave an apology without reading it.
He owes the fans and his kicker an apology.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, they could have tied the game up easily there, and it completely throws you off if you think you're kicking a 15-yard field goal, and now you're back 15 yards. I mean, that even though that's close as far as
it's never automatic, and the closer you are, the better. And it's just, I mean, and I'm going to add to this whole deal. The whole firing of Matt Luke at Ole Miss was total crap.
Yeah.
I think that their athletic director is gutless and spineless, and he's a coward. And for Matt Luke to be in a recruit's home and to find out at that point that you're fired and you don't even get a face-to-face, I mean, that athletic director is the one that should be fired, and he should never be able to work in college athletics again, because I think it's a gutless move. And I think Matt Luke took that job when nobody else would take it. They were on probation.
The players wanted him.
No way. There's not a single coach in college football, Nick Saban or Urban Meyer or whoever, who was going to take that program at that situation and be able to turn them around in 3 years.
Yeah.
They were not going to do it. And I think he got the short end of the stick. I think it's ridiculous. I think he should have been given 2 more years. And I just think, at least, give the man the respect to sit him down face to face and tell him and explain to him why. I mean, don't let him go out on the trail recruiting and then find out through what I read was an app alert that he didn't even get a phone call. I mean, it's sickening. And to be honest with you, if there's any recruits out there considering Ole Miss, go somewhere else. I mean, you don't want to go play at a school with an administration that does something like that. You just don't. Yeah. So that's the last I'll say about that.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back shortly with the picks for the conference championship games.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Let's get into conference championship predictions right now. That's what you guys want anyway. So let's start. Friday night is December 6th, is the first one. That's the Pac-12 championship game. All eyes on this game. It has immense playoff implications with this one.
Yeah,
Utah,
probably the biggest game as far as who's on the bubble.
Right.
You know, because if Oregon wins, Oklahoma jumps up into that spot.
Oklahoma. This is a benefit to Oklahoma because they know what Utah does.
Yeah.
And if it's a close game, if Utah does win, then they know, hey, we got to go out and we got to blow Baylor out. They know what they have to do to get in based on this outcome. So you have Utah at 11-1, Oregon's at 10-2. This game 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock Eastern time on ABC. Utah currently a 6-point favorite as of Monday night.
And it's at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California.
That's a 49ers stadium.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, pretty close to Oregon, a lot closer to Oregon, I'd assume, than Utah.
What do you think?
Man, Utah's just tough, but kind of looking through their stats, they're both oddly similar in offensive numbers. Oregon gives up I think 4 more points per game.
15.8 points for Oregon, 11.3 for Utah.
Yeah, and then just looking down their schedules, I mean, Utah has blown out quite a few teams in the last at least 5 weeks. And then Oregon, kind of has struggled a little bit here and there. They beat Washington State at home only by 2 points, but that's another really good offense. And then they did beat USC at USC, 56-24. And then they lost to Arizona State 2 weeks ago and then beat Oregon State 24-10. Oregon State's getting a little bit better. Mm-hmm. They're not so much the bottom dweller of the Pac-12 as they've been in years past. But, man, that's a really close number. I'm going to take Utah reluctantly. I don't want them to cover here because if Oregon covers, that means that they likely win. I mean, it could be within 3 points, but I'm going to take Utah. I think Utah's the safe bet here.
Yeah. So I really feel like Utah is going to win the game. 6 is tough because I think that's right at a spot where it might end up. Yeah. It's just hard. It could be 7. It could be 4. I mean, that's a tough number to bet. I mean, as far as gambling goes, I wouldn't bet on it because it's just so close.
Well, another thing here, Utah is at 75% at covering the spread. Oregon is only at 50%. Oregon is 6-6 on the year at covering the spread. And Utah is 9-3, so take that.
I think I'm going to side with you, and I'm going to take Utah to cover. The biggest telling point here is Cristobal. Despite having a first-round NFL quarterback like Herbert, he just wants to run the ball. He's an old-school coach. He relies on C.J. Verdell, and Utah's only giving up 56 yards a game. I mean, on the ground. I mean, I don't see Oregon winning this if they're going to rely on the run. I mean, they're going to have to air it out. It's going to have to be put on Herbert's shoulders. He can't throw for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's going to have to get 300 yards and 3-4 touchdowns to win this game. And I don't think he's going to do it because I don't think Crisple's going to call the game that way.
Oregon also played another neutral site game this year, and they did not cover the spread on that one.
So I will take Utah as well. Yeah. So we both come. Okay. I got to go back here for a second. Okay, starting Saturday, first one, 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. Memphis and Cincinnati. They just played last week, and Memphis won by 10. They were 11-point favorites, and here spread is 10. So it's a rematch. It's back in Memphis because the American Conference apparently doesn't play a neutral site conference championship game unless Memphis was already the chosen destination. But I mean, so here you have the two teams that's already played. I am going to take Cincinnati to at least cover the spread, and here's why. When you play a team twice, the winning team usually goes into it this is what we did before. Let's stick to the game plan. It's going to work. The team that lost usually changes everything. Yeah. And so I think the team that won the first game gets caught off guard. And I think Cincinnati's a good enough team. If they can catch Memphis off guard and maybe get ahead, maybe they don't win the game, but I think they cover 10. So I'm going to take Cincinnati.
Cincinnati 7-5 against the spread. Memphis is a little bit better at 8-4 against the spread. Was that game a push? Was that our push last week?
No, last week Memphis was an 11-point favorite. You took Memphis, I took Cincinnati, and it was a 10-point.
That's right.
Win.
Okay.
So
yeah. I knew there was one. There was one push, but man, this one's kind of a tough one. They're playing in where are they playing?
At Memphis.
At Memphis.
Yeah.
Man. This one is a doozy. I'll take Cincinnati to keep it close.
Okay.
I'll take Cincinnati. It's just too. 10's a little bit much. I know that's where the game was split this last time, but you're right. It's really hard to beat a team, especially the next week.
Right. Back to back.
Yeah. And Cincinnati's good enough, to at least keep it a little bit closer than that, I think.
Yep.
So I'll take Cincinnati.
Okay. Ohio State plays Wisconsin, the Big Ten championship game, 8 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. Ohio State is a 16.5-point favorite. Look, they put a beat down on Wisconsin the first go-around. I don't see any reason to believe that it won't happen again. Wisconsin, now to their credit, last week against Minnesota, Cone threw the ball really well. I mean, he made throws when he needed to, in the weather, in the snow, and he kind of came on when he needed to. Jonathan Taylor turned in more of a wide receiver. He had a really good game. I just don't think these two teams are completely in different leagues as far as talent goes, speed, everything. I mean, I guess anything could happen, but I really expect just another dominant game out of Ohio State. I think they come out firing. I don't think you're going to see Justin Fields run as much because of the banged up knee.
Yeah.
So that means he's going to air it out, which makes him even more dangerous.
That's another thing you got to think. I mean, who do they have at quarterback behind Justin Fields?
They have Chuganoff, the transfer from West Virginia.
Yeah.
The kid's good. He's okay. He's pretty good. And he's got a ton of weapons around him. But he's not good enough to lead that team to a national championship.
Yeah.
So you got to keep Fields healthy, and that means you can't run him. No design runs. Maybe need to cut down on the RPOs and just let him air it out for once. I mean, because you don't want to risk him injuring him. But I think Ohio State covers the 16.5.
Yeah. They beat them 38-7 early in the year. Mm-hmm. Granted, that was not the conference championship game. That was at Ohio State.
Right.
But Ohio State has the ability with Chase Young to shut the run down.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not another team that has a player like Chase Young.
Right.
He's the best defensive lineman in the country.
And if you double team him, you're just opening the hole for somebody else.
Right.
Because Ohio State's, I mean, they're deep right there on the front seven.
Really good linebackers. I mean, they have put together a run-stopping defense that has been just dominant.
Yeah.
I think they're not this year.
They went into last week's game number 1 in team defense and team offense. Now they're number 4 in team offense. I think Clemson moved up to number 1. So, but still, they're pretty dominant. And I just don't. I mean, they shut down Jonathan Taylor last time. I don't think he even got to 60 yards rushing in the first go-around. I think it's another shutdown of him. If they're going to get him the ball, it's going to have to be out on screen, bubble screens and things like that. They're not going to be able to run between the tackles. They just can't do it. So, So you got Ohio State?
Yeah.
Okay. Next game in Arlington, Oklahoma, Baylor. Oklahoma got the win the first go-around in a really just a nail-biter of a game.
Yeah.
Probably give you close to being a heart attack if you're a Sooner fan. But this time around, it's a neutral site. You've got... With Utah playing on Friday night, the Sooners should go into this knowing exactly what they need to do to get that 4th spot in the playoffs. Because it really comes down to Utah and Oklahoma unless they both lose. And then if they both lose, I mean, Florida could jump up in there. Who knows? But I don't know. But anyway, as far as this game goes, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, Georgia will remain in that picture too.
I don't think they are if they get beat by LSU.
I mean, 2 loss, that's... kind of where the bubble teams are starting to kind of be right above. But anyway,
It's possible. But
so 8 points on this one. Is that right?
I think that's what it was. I keep shutting down. Hang on. Yes, Oklahoma's an 8-point favorite right now.
Yeah. I think really, as far as and I'm not going to backtrack on what I just said about the Memphis-Cincinnati game. I know they're playing for the second time. This is another set of teams like Wisconsin and Ohio State. But I think the best case happened for Oklahoma against Baylor the first time around. Baylor comes out strong, starts winning real big, and then Oklahoma in the second half just turns it on and
shut them out.
Found out,
Second
completely
half.
17 yards of offense. I think they ran, 4 plays in the second or the third quarter, and so I think they're really they took those adjustments that they needed to make, and they found this works.
Yep.
Whatever we did against this team works.
Keep Charlie Brewer off the field.
Right. So they already got to see a different game, basically, out of playing Baylor. So I think really that was best case scenario. They've shown that they're able to make those adjustments and then be able to kind of turn things around and keep and find the things within that game to kind of keep Charlie Brewer at bay. They've got now their defense is going to be the outlier because their defense is really athletic. They're really fast. But they got wore down. I mean, towards the end of that game, they were just gassed. The defensive line putting their hands on their hips, the front seven, even the linebackers were worn out. So I really would like to see what Baylor's defense is going to come out with this week because Matt Rule, man, he's a heck of a coach. And
he is.
Here pretty soon, if he doesn't have loyalty to Baylor, he's going to be off to somewhere, Penn State maybe. I think he's the number one on their short list. So, 8 points. I've gone against the Sooners the last couple weeks just because they haven't shown me. But against Oklahoma State, they showed me that they could do it. I mean, they granted that was against a backup quarterback and a team that has just kind of been hollowed out by some of their production being on the bench. This is a tough one. I'm going to say that Baylor keeps it close just because they have the ability to. The other outlier will be Oklahoma's defense. What can they do? Because they've found something here late in the year, like they always seem to do, and when it counts, they come up and make big plays. I mean, Parnell Motley was the defensive player of the week for the Big 12, it seemed like. So
you got Baylor.
Man, this is the hardest one to pick all week. I don't want to overreact by their win against Oklahoma State because I think it was just they were just better. I'll take Baylor. I'll take Baylor in this. I hope Oklahoma proves me wrong this week.
Okay.
I'm going to ride with them till I die, but I really do think that Baylor will keep it close.
I'm going to take Oklahoma to cover the 8. I think that they are hitting their stride right at the perfect point, and I think what the key here is that Oklahoma, the players on defense, have a confidence that they haven't had in years. I mean, years. I mean, there's 2 games now that they've won it by getting an interception. I mean, the defense wins it at the end, and there's no substitute for that. To walking on that field, not thinking, man, can we just get a stop? Instead, you're walking on that field like, man, this is ours. Like I'm getting an interception, and I just feel like they have a confidence they haven't had in years. I mean, on the defensive side of the ball. And I think they take care of Baylor pretty handily in this game. So I'm going to take Oklahoma to cover.
Too many times, and this may be why I'm so reluctant, but too many times in the past have I seen, a freshman come in and have like David Ogwebu, who had just a crazy game against Oklahoma State. Flying all over the field. They had several freshmen make big time plays in that game, and then Parnell Motley, who's been up and down in his career. Too many times I've seen guys just have phenomenal games like that, and then the very next game, they're nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know if they just get it in their head that was enough. But, no. I want to switch.
Every time you switch, you
Not every time. Not every
time,
but maybe once I've been right. Man, just knowing that what they need to do, and I've said that before, I'll take Oklahoma to win big. I will, because in every Big 12 championship so far since it's been reinstated, they've played phenomenally and with the worst defense. So I will take Oklahoma. I'm going to switch on that.
Okay.
And if they don't, you can blame me. So for switching.
We're going to take one more break, and then we'll be right back. We got 4 games left to pick, starting with the SEC championship game. So we'll be right back after this. Okay, everybody, welcome back. It's time to pick another huge game, the SEC championship game being played in Atlanta. Georgia, LSU, 4 versus 2 as far as AP rankings go right now. 4 versus 1 because LSU jumped Ohio State in the AP.
And we
don't know how they'll be in the playoff rankings. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Georgia, LSU a 7.5-point favorite. I think that's come down 0.5 point. But it's currently Monday night sitting at 7.5. I don't think Georgia can hang with LSU's offense. I'm not even going to break this down a lot. I'm taking LSU. I stuck with them. I'm going to stick with them. They have the best quarterback in the country, and Joe Burrow should be the automatic Heisman winner. And I just don't think Georgia's offense, they probably don't have DeAndre Swift this week. I think he's going to be out. They might have a receiver that's out. They're kind of hurting, and I don't think they can get it done against LSU. So give me the Tigers.
Yeah, and Georgia, their defense has been pretty good, maybe even better than LSU. LSU's defense has been not great, so that'll be kind of a.
I think Georgia's going to score some points because I've said this before, and I know LSU fans hate hearing it, but they don't have a defense to win a national championship.
Yeah.
And they had a great game against Texas A&M, but Georgia's not Texas A&M. Ohio State's not Texas A&M. Clemson's not Texas A&M. They're about to hit some pretty stout offenses. I just think at the end of the day, LSU's offense is so good that despite Georgia having a great defense, they haven't seen a quarterback like Joe Burrow yet.
Yeah.
And I just think that LSU outscores. Georgia might score 30 points, but then LSU might score 45 or 50.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at. And so, again, give me LSU.
I'm looking here to see where they're at against the spread, what their record. 7-5 for Georgia, 58.3%. Covering the spread. Then LSU 7-5, so they're the same.
It's a draw.
Dead even there. So that doesn't really help as much. And the game is where? Is
Atlanta.
It in Atlanta?
So it's a backyard game for Georgia.
Yeah. Looking into that a little bit more. Fromm seems to turn the ball over a little bit. Although Joe Burrow has 6 interceptions on the year, Fromm's got 3. But he's also thrown almost 100 more passes than Jake Fromm.
Yeah.
Man, Georgia's defense is better, I think, overall. There's probably some people throwing some stuff at their screens for that, but hey, you've got problems on defense. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You've got really good players, but man, I'll take LSU. They seem to just take care of business. That Texas A&M game, and Texas A&M, they're not bad. They're not terrible.
Yeah.
They might be bad, not just bottom dwellers of the SEC. They're not the worst team.
Upper mid-pack team, overall in the SEC.
So I'll take LSU. This one's a tough one just because it's basically a home game for Georgia there, and Georgia has the ability to play with them, but I think LSU takes it.
Okay. Next game is the Sun Belt Conference Championship. Louisiana versus App State. App State 11-1, Louisiana 10-2. App State is currently a 6-point favorite. I don't know a whole lot about these teams. I'm just kind of making a pick. It's not a game I'd bet on because I don't follow them that closely. App State's been in the top 25 most of the year. Their only loss was to Georgia Southern. 6 points. I could regret this, but I'm going to take App State to cover the 6.
I'm going to look here and see. So
if you are a gambler and if you are going to put money on this game, maybe you should go find another source for your information than us. But
I'm looking back here to see if both have their quarterbacks. So Levi Lewis, it looks like he did play the last in their last game against ULM, and then App State took care of Troy, and their quarterback looks like Thomas. Zach Thomas. Is he their backup quarterback? No, he's their starter. He's thrown for 24-27, 24 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Levi Lewis has thrown for 2,450, 20 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So similar. I think these two teams rank up really. They match up really well together. I think if you look at it statistically, they're pretty close. And Louisiana in the last few games I know their last game, their rivalry game, was only 1 point. But if you look at the games before then, I mean, they were taking care of business. And so is App State. But I think this one will be a close kind of nail-biter type game. I could see this game being about 3 points. So I will say Louisiana covers there.
Okay. Next game is going to be Mountain West Championship, Hawaii versus Boise State. Boise State's a 13.5-point favorite. This one, of course, being played in Boise on the Smurf turf. And the truth is, when it comes down to it, Boise State just rarely loses at home.
Yeah.
So I have no doubts that Boise State's going to win the game. 13.5. I want to take Boise State only because Hawaii's defense is really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been giving up. Hang on, I had it pulled up here. They've been giving up 31.8 points per game, scoring 35 points per game. That's only a 4-point difference. Boise State's been scoring 37 points a game, giving up 21. And I just think, too, another element of it is this time of year, it's extremely cold in Boise, Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And those kids that play out in Hawaii, that are used to the sun and the surf, and they're not used to bone-chilling cold weather. And I think that catches just about every team that ends up playing in Boise for a Mountain West Conference Championship gets caught up in that cold weather. And so I think the cold weather is a deciding factor here, which allows Boise State to cover the 13.5.
Yeah. Yeah, they went to Colorado State last week and won 31-24. Boise State, that being. And then against Utah State, at Utah State, they won 56-21. Utah State's not very good. And then New Mexico, they won 42-9. And then Wyoming, who's actually pretty good, they went to a overtime game, 20-17 there. And then Hawaii's last 4 games, they've won their last 4. They beat Army 52-31. They beat San Diego State 14-11. That's a weird score. And UNLV 21-7, and San Jose State 42-40. So both have kind of played in some games that were, pretty close. But I just think at Boise, it's like you said, it's going to be cold. It's a long distance for Hawaii. Boise State doesn't lose very much at home.
Right.
And I just think they're overall better than Hawaii here. Okay. So I'll take them to cover.
Okay. A couple more games here I completely forgot about. MAC championship game, Miami of Ohio against Central Michigan. Central Michigan, 6-point favorite.
I don't know much about these two teams. I'll just take Central Michigan. Yeah. It seems like they have players every year.
I think Central Michigan's probably the better team. 6 points, not a whole lot. I think Central Michigan covers that. Conference USA, UAB against Florida Atlantic.
Although, who did Miami didn't they just
Florida International, as FIU.
Beat somebody?
That was Florida International, not Florida Atlantic, that Miami just beat. Or Miami just lost to. So.
No. Okay, they beat Ohio, and then they beat Akron. Maybe it's just because you have the Ohio connection. And then they lost to Ball State this last week. Central Michigan's won their last 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
And they're scoring a lot of points. So I think it's pretty easy to take Central Michigan in that.
All right, UAB, FAU. FAU, 7.5-point favorite. I'll take FAU to cover 7.5. UAB, They're both 9-3 teams. The telling thing was that UAB, I think they were a one-loss team going in to play in Tennessee, and I thought they would be able to hang, and they just got whipped. Yep. And Florida Atlantic, they can score. They have a good offense. I'll just take Florida Atlantic to cover 7.5.
Yeah, and I want to. I haven't really been keeping up with them, but I just want to check to make sure that Chris Robinson, he is still their quarterback. Throwing some touchdowns, but doesn't look very good against Florida International or Southern Miss. I'll take FAU to cover. They can score points. They usually schedule kind of bigger teams. They played Ohio State this year. They played Oklahoma last year. They do have the ability to score points. And Chris Robinson was a 4-star kid coming out of high school. Yep. It looks like they settled on him for the year, and so I'll take them to cover.
All right. 2 games left here. Virginia, Clemson, ACC championship game. Clemson, of course, undefeated, 12-0. Virginia, 9-3, coming off just the stunning upset of Virginia Tech last week. I don't think most people expected that one. But they are in the...
Even though I think the spread was like 3.5.
Yeah, but Clemson is a 29-point favorite. I just don't like... I hate those big spreads. Clemson has been covering them lately, but I'm going to take Virginia just to cover the spread in this one.
Yeah, Clemson is 75% on the year at covering the spread. They've only lost out on 3. So that's, really, really good. I don't think anybody really gives Virginia much of a chance in this game. And Clemson knows, and even Dabo Swinney has said it,
they lose, they're out.
If we lose, we're out. It seemed like he was complaining about that, but then he actually proved the point.
Which I will say, if Utah and Oklahoma both lose, and they lose, they're a one-loss team, they're probably not out.
Yeah.
So, true. The way things are playing out. So, it's not a guarantee that they're going to be out if they lose. So,
yeah.
What do you think? You think they cover 29 or?
That's a lot. It's the biggest spread we see here in the conference championship games. But I'll take them to cover. They've been just rolling in the last few weeks, and I don't see them slowing down at this point.
Okay, last one, bonus pick. It's 2 weeks out, Army-Navy. So there's no spread here, but looking at the numbers and based on how Vegas seems to set the spread, from what I've gathered this year, it looks like Navy is going to be anywhere from an 8 to a 12-point favorite. We figured we'd split the difference at 10, add a hook because we don't want it to push. So 10.5, we're just going to set it as far as our picks at 10.5. We'll have to wait and see what it really comes out, but that's what we're going to pick it at. Navy, 10.5-point favorite. Shaun, what do you think?
I've got Navy. I'll take Navy to cover 10.5.
Yeah, I'm going to be the same. I think Navy can cover 10.5. We wanted to make sure to pick this one just because we're not going to do a whole video just for that game, but it's a historic rivalry, and we want to give them due diligence and at least make a pick on this. So
yeah, Navy beat Houston 56-41. They beat SMU 35-28, which SMU you've seen has the ability to score points in a hurry.
Yep.
And they just kept them at bay. So. Then their last game they lost was at Notre Dame, 52-20. They beat UConn 56-10, and they beat Tulane 41-38. Army's last 5, they lost to Hawaii, but that was at Hawaii. And then they, let's see. I'm sorry, it's freezing up on me. So. It's still freezing up.
Anyways.
So UMass, they beat UMass, who's maybe the worst college football team.
They're pretty bad
this year. They beat them 63-7. They lost to Air Force. So I don't know. I just think at 10.5, I would think that Army has the ability to control the ball. With the way that they block and their triple option, but Navy has just they've been better this year.
Both these teams, Navy can throw it if they need to throw it, but they pretty much both teams run the ball.
Yeah.
Which means this clock is just going to run. So you wouldn't expect it to be a super high scoring game like most of the games these teams have been in, like Army and Hawaii. But I think at the end of the day, Navy does take the win more than 10.5. Okay, that's it. we are not going to do a video this week after the playoff rankings are released. We will do one the following week after the final rankings are released, and we'll talk about the playoffs. Then we won't make a pick, and then we'll talk about the final playoff pairings, and then we'll have a video to predict the meaningless bowl games, and then we'll pick the semifinals and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so, but
several videos left to go.
A couple more, a few more to go. So, but that's it for now. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit like, hit that bell for that notification. Go follow us on Twitter. Check out the podcast. All that other good stuff. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.